On to the annual review of our positions for action. I'm Rhonda Osman, a co-director of Action and Advocacy and the co-host for today's meeting. And this meeting allows us members to weigh in on what we stand for. We'll go through our positions, we'll give some examples of the work the League is doing, and we'll ask for a consensus on our direction. Okay, and I'd like to remind us first of all of who we are. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, grassroots nonprofit dedicated to empowering everyone to fully participate in our democracy. The League does not endorse or oppose political parties or candidates. Our leagues advocate and educate to ensure that every Coloradan has the freedom, confidence, and information they need to vote. Okay. So this meeting is different from our usual public presentations and member coffees. Each year, the League consults its grassroots, which is us, to gauge concurrence on its general course of action. Members re-examine our position statements at all three levels and suggest changes. And we'll take the outcomes from this meeting and report them to the State League and then on to the National League. Today, we ask that non-members observe and that only members participate in consensus and discussion. Are there any non-members here? We've decided that it will work if you either hold your hand up and leave it there for when we respond, or use the reactions button down at the bottom to pick a hand. And we'll be using that to vote all the way through. So are there any non-members here? And I'm going to think that that means no. Okay, very good. So in general, our program today is going to be to make introductions, to review our positions, particularly those of the state and our local league. We're going to get some updates from the issue teams, and we're going to conduct polls for consensus. Okay. And for our introductions, we have, as I said, I am Rhonda Osman. My co-host is Holly Monkman, and you will hear more from her later. Our issue teams are represented by gun safety with Julia Collins. School policy will be Linda Haltman. Climate action is Susan Saunders. Voting methods is Jen Cleland. And election timing is probably Liz Black. Although I'm not sure who's here for election timing. We will learn about that later. Okay. And if you're on Zoom, and we are, please enter your name and your town in the chat so that we can keep track of who is represented in our consensus. Okay. And I think, Holly, I think that's for you now.
I think it's over to me. Thanks, Rhonda. So, right, the League, we have our positions, and we're all about empowering voters and defending democracy. And our positions allow us to take a multitude of actions. So let's see if I get through here. All right. Yeah, it's a little harder to take quick polls. For my sake, just unmute yourself and shout out. Is there anyone here who's a relatively new member, say less than 2 years member?
I think maybe I am, or I might be going on 3, but I still consider myself a novice.
New member, okay. And Britta, okay. Nice to meet you, Britta. Thank you. Okay, so
I'm about 2 years. I can still use refreshers.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, we'll go through some of our league terminology. I know this was all new to me when I was first joined. So positions, we keep talking about positions here tonight. It's a statement of the league's point of view on an issue. First, the issue is thoroughly studied by members, and agreement is reached via consensus or concurrence. Then the position is approved by the board. So skipping down below, consensus, that's a word you'll hear a lot tonight too. It's a general collective agreement of a substantial number of league members, representative of our membership as of a whole, with the objective of having a study on an issue that leads to a position statement. So We want general agreement, and that's why we're also interested in quorum, and hopefully, I'm not sure where we're at between the two meetings, the one we had on Saturday tonight, representing a percentage of our general membership. So we'll be talking about getting consensus on state and county issues tonight, a general agreement. Concurrence is when maybe another league, a county league somewhere in Colorado, perhaps has a position that they've already have taken. And instead of going and doing our own study on it, we want to concur with them, save time, but we'll still have a discussion and so forth on it before including it in our positions. Action, we'll talk a little bit about those coming up. Back on the top row again, we use our positions to take stances at the local, state, and national level. And we might have actions from lobbying to other advocacy and so forth. I'll talk a little bit about that more in a moment. Action alerts, you might see those come across your email from either the national, state, or county level. And convention, that's the big meeting held. The national has a convention, state has a convention. We have an annual meeting. We don't get to call ours a convention, but we have our annual meeting once a year. State has a convention once a year, electing officers and talking about positions at those levels. Any questions on league terminology before we go on? Okay. Britta, your hand's still up. Is that from before, or do you have a question? Okay. Very good. Thanks. Let's see. Action criteria. So at the county level, and it happens at the state level too, but we'll talk more at Boulder County League. Before we take an action, we look at the issue and say, well, do we have a position that supports a stance one way or the other on this issue? Do we have broad member understanding and agreement on this issue? Is it one of our priorities? There's a lot going on in the world, but there's only so many members and so much time. And, we have to decide where to use our energy and so forth. So some things may not be a priority, so we may not take action. Or maybe there's another group that is better situated to take action, but maybe we can join in with them, kind of team up. That might be another consideration. What members of our community would be impacted by this issue? Is this something that we really want to take to get out in public about and take a stand for a certain group in our community? Those are the kind of things that we have to consider before taking an action. Let's see. Okay. And then moving on. So how does our Boulder County League use positions? So we have local ballot issues, and I know Judy's joining us tonight. She was the ballot issues director, did a lot of work organizing that group, studying the ballot issues, and then the board looks and at our positions. Can we take a stance on some of the ballot issues, our local issues? The state does the same thing, but my state is my next slide. Don't get ahead of myself. What else do we have? We have ballot issue presentations. It may be more than just taking a stance on an issue, but we want to offer information to the voters so they can decide. And last year, you can find a lot of our ballot issue presentations or candidate forms, separate issue, sorry, on our YouTube channel. This one was on ballot issue 2E, election timing. What else do we have? Letters to the editor. Also, again, we have to be supported by our positions. And letters to the editor usually agreed upon by the board, submitted by the president, so that we're speaking with one voice with the county league. Let's see. And we also had the action alert that went out not too long ago, and I will talk about that more later also. At the state level, how does the state level use positions. There's the Legislative Action Committee, or the LAC, that lobbies the General Assembly when they're in session. We have task forces at the state level. There's a whole slew of them there you can join, or sit in and see what they're discussing. And they also refer stuff back to the LAC if they see something that they want the state to take a stance on, position, support, oppose, or maybe amend. Sometimes we suggest amendments to legislation that's been proposed at the state legislature. And what else? We also have a lawsuit going on at the state level based on our positions. There was a group claiming election fraud in 2020, and they've been going door to door asking people if they voted and how they voted. And we have joined with some other groups. The LWB Colorado has joined with some other groups and suing that group to get them to stop. They recently tried to have it thrown out. The judge said no, this is going to move forward. So the case is moving forward to trial the last time I checked. So pretty powerful to have these positions at the state level too. And then next, how does League US use positions? We're not reviewing the national positions tonight, thankfully. We're just doing state and county, but you've probably seen action alerts from the US level league too. Here's a recent one I found on the website dealing with the Equal Rights Amendment and trying to get us to call our representatives to still get the Equal Rights Amendment through. How long has that been going on? Another way, the National League is also very active with lawsuits. You probably not maybe in the last year or so, but gerrymandering courses in front of the Supreme Court, where the league is one of the groups that brought that forward. So, and I think you can see here from this list, we have currently 15 lawsuits ongoing just with fighting voter suppression. So very active there, and you can find that on their website. So our positions are the foundation for so much work at all three levels. And just as a refresher, we here at Boulder County can use a position from the national or the state or our county positions. Okay, and that's the basis for a lot of our work and activities. So we as a county league cannot take action that is counter to a position at the national level or the state level, just to make sure that's understood. So if state has a position on something, we can't go and take a stance on an issue that contradicts that. And the same for the national level. We may not agree amongst the other counties in the Colorado with their positions, but that's okay. So it's once it's gone up a level. So let's start going over Colorado positions. So hopefully you saw there through our various emails trying to get people to register and attend a link to the program of study and action, the state position book. It's the go-to reference for determining areas of focus for our league. It's available on the state league website at lwbcolorado.org under legislative action. And it's comprised of many sections that the league has worked on over the years. It's 95 pages long, so we're not reading everything in this book tonight. Thank God. We'll try to hit some highlights here. When you first get into the book, you'll see here, this is the positions in brief. It's a brief statement of our position on all these different issues. That's where you should start if there's something you're curious about. As you get further into the document, then you have more detail on the position and the history of how it's been used at the state level. How position might have been used to take a stance one way or another on a bill that's come up in the legislature. And this gets updated every year at the end of the General Assembly session. So a lot of information. If you're having trouble sleeping at night, dig into it. But mainly, for our issue teams, if there's something, that you don't see in our county level positions, but you want to know if you can work on something or have questions about something, by all means, dig into the details in that area at the state level book. So it's a great resource. All right, let's back up. Keep that. Oh, nope. Now I want. Okay, there we go. So, so at the moment, right, session's underway. Legislative Action Committee is very busy, or the LAC, abbreviate. And here's an example on the area of government of a bill that's being considered right now. Senate Bill 101, candidate ballot access for primary elections. It's a 21-page bill, not going to talk detail, but it has to do with how candidates would access not only primary elections, but also general elections. The name is misleading on this bill. There's a nominating a process within the political parties. This bill is about having all the candidates petition onto the ballot. So a big change in how our primaries would be run as far as getting candidates on there. Also changes things as far as how unaffiliated voters can sign petitions for candidates from parties and so forth. So there's a lot going on in this bill. Let's see, Friday was the last time I checked the status of it. LAC's decided to oppose the bill, and it was postponed indefinitely at its committee hearing. So didn't go anywhere, but certainly very much right in there with league positions. What else do we have? Under redistricting, not something currently going on, but it was a really big deal for us for 2022. The first use of our independent commission for redistricting, for drawing all the new districts, not controlled by the political parties anymore. Back in 2018, the voters approved initiatives Y and Z. League was very involved with this and getting this passed. So it's a big deal. We've got a few competitive districts now. It's a model of how to have independent redistricting done. Again, our positions support this. And then next, fiscal policies, another area under government. Just quickly, we often see this come up in our ballot issues at elections too. This was a reduction of state income tax bill, reducing the rate from 4.4% down to 3.5%. LEC opposed this bill and it failed to get out of committee, or what's called being postponed indefinitely. So that's another case of a government type position. And lastly, this is kind of an interesting one, House Bill 1149 under local government. Modify conduct of elections in small counties. Generally, very quickly, it has to do with counties with small populations, and how many voter service polling centers should they have then when they don't have that large a population, but they might be geographically large, and most of us vote by mail. So there's some government positions we have reading that local governments should be accountable, responsive, flexible, efficient, and effective. But is that efficient, to have a lot of voter polling service centers set up all over a very large county with not that many voters maybe using them? So LAC hasn't quite decided how to handle this yet. It conflicts a little bit with voter access, but so it's an interesting cross or blend of our positions that make it sometimes difficult for us to take a stance because things seem to be a little contradictory for us. So that wraps up the government area. Moving on to natural resources. Let's see, climate change. There's a bill that was just recently mentioned in the Daily Camera, House Bill 1069. Study of biochar and plugging of oil and gas wells. We have a pretty lengthy position on climate change. I don't want to take the time to read through it right now, but this bill creates a working advisory group to make recommendations based on a pilot program that would study the use of biochar in plugging a lot of our old oil and gas wells that are still emitting greenhouse gases. The LAC supports this bill, and it did pass out of the Energy and Environment Committee and is on its way to appropriations. Like I said, it was just in the Daily Camera last week, if you want to read about that. Let's see. Under energy, our position in brief is that we support environmentally sound policies that reduce energy growth rates, emphasize energy conservation, and encourage the use of renewable resources. Well, here's a bill, 1134. You may have heard about this. This has caught some attention in the news also. Requiring electric options in home warranties. Maybe you have a gas furnace that's under warranty and something goes wrong, but now you want to replace it with something that uses a different fuel, switching to electric perhaps, but your warranty won't reimburse you anything. Most warranties are written that you have to get a very similar piece of equipment, or if not the very same model. So that if this bill passes, it might be that you get cash in lieu of a model to spend how you wish on your heating system, or something else that, you know, from that manufacturer that is an alternative energy other than gas. Let's see, LAC supports it, and it has passed out of the House and is on its way to the Senate. So this bill is making progress. And social policy, under the sub-area of equality of opportunity, secure equal rights and equal opportunity for all, promote social and economic justice and the health and safety of all Americans. There's a Senate Bill 017 about expanding the uses for paid sick leave. Maybe your child's school closed down for the day and now you don't have childcare for them, you know, being able to use your paid sick leave time for that. Maybe attending funeral services, just expanding the options that way to make life a little easier for people out there. Let's see, this has been supported by the LAC, the Colorado League, and has passed out of committee. And what else do we have here? Under education, we support pre-K through 12 public education system in which a balanced curriculum of humanities, arts, and sciences leads to lifelong learning for all students. Support of a stronger leadership role for the Colorado Department of Ed to promote educational improvements and standards for early childhood. And this is a bill that caught LAC's attention, and they are in support of it. An interstate teacher mobility compact. Teachers have to be licensed per state, so they tend not to move around per state because it's expensive and time consuming to go through the exam and fees for a new license. This would allow states to get together into a compact and say, if you're licensed in this state, then you can move to this state and teach. And this is, I've heard, was largely driven by military to help facilitate life a bit for their military spouses and so forth that might be teachers, and they get moved around all the time and they want to continue to work, obviously. So let's see, that has also passed out of committee and is headed for the full House. Under gun safety, the state position is protect the health and safety of citizens through limiting the accessibility and regulating the ownership of handguns and semi-automatic weapons. Support regulation of firearms for consumer safety. House Bill 1050 is one that shows up repeatedly over the years that I've been working with LAC. Protection of business from unlawful entry, kind of known as a stand your ground type bill. LAC opposed this, and it did not make it out of committee, so it was postponed indefinitely. So that's where that one is. There's some other gun safety bills active in the legislature now too, but we're going to move on to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The League of Women Voters of Colorado is an organization fully committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and in practice. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are central to the organization's current and future success in engaging all individuals, households, communities, and policymakers in creating a more perfect democracy. So House Bill 1057, this is where you may have seen the action alert we sent out at the county level. It would, for new construction of public buildings and buildings having substantial restroom renovations, there would be requirements to add some non-gender specific facilities, whether it's a single room or multi-stall. It would add in diaper changing stations, either in both gendered bathrooms or in a non-gendered bathroom. Basically, you know, moms, dads, whoever should be able to change their children's diapers without worrying what bathroom they're going into. And also for whether it's LGBTQ, or in the case of one of our members that stepped forward, it was caregiver for her father who'd been confined to a wheelchair. And when he needed to use restroom facilities out in public, if there wasn't a family room available, it left them in a quandary and often some uncomfortable situations. So, and I've heard similar things for people caring for toddlers. Same thing, they've gotten to the age, they don't want to go into the women's room, but they're certainly not old enough to go into the men's room. I mean, this bill could help a variety of our community members. And that has also made it out of committee and is waiting to be heard in the House, last I heard. So if you're interested in what's going on with the LAC, you can always keep tabs on it at the state website, lwvcolorado.org. Go to the legislative action tab, and they have a report and a list of bills that they're following. So that is our quick review of state positions. So now, yeah, if you could find your thumbs up reaction or hold hand. Well, I guess, does anybody have any questions or discussion at this point? I should ask first on state positions. Not seeing
Holly,
it.
it's Elizabeth. I don't have any questions, just really appreciate that thorough run through and great examples.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you. Okay. Anything else?
Well, is it time to move to retain current positions?
Well, first we'll ask, does anybody recommend a new study?
Oh, okay.
Seeing none. Is there any recommendation for a review of an existing state position? Okay, seeing nothing there. Do we recommend a concurrence with an existing position for another league? This is at the state level. Okay. Are there any positions we would like to see removed? Seeing nothing.
Does the state league have any, state league board have any recommendations? I mean, a lot of the positions are quite old and they say we should have more of something, and you know, and sometimes and you know, I guess we don't want to go there, right? I mean, as a county league.
Right.
Let's wait for the state league to say, please.
Yeah, I don't have any feedback from the state that they're looking for counties to remove or suggest things. So let's see, we'll go to some questions. Britta?
Yeah, I'm here because Celeste Landry told me about a study about primary elections, but that's all I know. Do you know anything? Do you know? I know she's in Boston with her daughter,
I can address that. I'm here representing the voting methods team, and we're going to talk to that when we get into local issues. But
Great.
I understand the question now is about state positions. So this is
Thank-
not, that
Okay.
is not a state study. It would be a local league study.
Thanks very much.
Okay, Elizabeth?
Yeah, hey everybody. I just want to second what Holly shared about state. I do recall pretty clearly that from the National League convention, which happened last June, although that was obviously about national positions, there was just a lot of, chatter and discussion among state Colorado League representatives, just kind of underscoring like we're not as a body adverse to talking about new issues and as they arise. But it can be a lot of work and a lot of resources, meaning money, time, so that there's not that we would be looking, right? Just kind of think it's a bad thing if we don't have new positions to do that research, and just being mindful of what it takes to do that. And so if we can use our existing positions, we're certainly encouraged to do so. So anyway, just a little bit more on that, but just ultimately concurring or agreeing with what Holly's observation is that there doesn't seem to be any state league board request or desired need for new positions. Thanks.
Okay, I will share from discussion we had at Saturday's meeting. It's not a new position, but at the national level, we have a position in general support of proportional representation for our governing bodies, such as which for us would be like our county commissioners, school board districts, city council would be another example. So there's this general support statement for proportional representation at the national level. And we had a suggestion that a request for state to basically repeat that position in the state document, so that if someone's looking for a position statement, they don't have to go, sifting all the way through the state document and then finally up to national to find, which is also another large document, to find the league support for proportional representation. There's more discussion, more activity going on potentially around this at the state legislature. So we'll have more discussion about this at the county level too. That will help explain sort of why we want to, there's increase in a desire to increase the visibility of our position in favor of proportional representation. But it's not a concurrence, it's not a new study, it's just repeating that language in the state positions. So any other questions at this point? Peggy?
Yeah, I'd just like to second that motion about bringing that position of proportional representation down into the state handbook and all that. And the
Yeah,
local.
I don't even know if we need to consider it a motion or proposal, because it doesn't fit like the formal questions that state
Yeah.
has given us, but we're definitely going to recommend that state consider that. And it may even happen through the LAC if a bill comes about that we can take a position on that just by recording the history of LAC's activities on it. It would get repeated in the state document. So
I think
we have that position at national. So
I think one of our county positions mentions it.
and we have it mentioned in the county position, right? And again, we're going to get more into that in a moment.
I mean, it's not a position, but we just say until proportional representation. Yeah. Okay.
But of course, that's in our county positions.
Right.
State
So
level, you don't look to county, but state level, you look up to national, and it is there. We're just trying to increase its visibility that league does support proportional representation. It's an idea in elections that has some momentum right now. So we're trying to increase the conversation there.
Well, and then Peggy asked, I mean, should we vote on that, or just say we don't agree or we do agree, or?
Who wants to be our, is it,
I think we have space, and Susan Saunders, remind me if this is incorrect, when we fill out surveys, which in this case will go to the state, that we can add kind of notes for our own process. I don't know if we formally need to support at this point, but we could certainly share that there was some interest from LWVBC members in support of that.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure either, but I think on their survey or the responses they request after by March 1st, we certainly have an opportunity to make the recommendation that they add this national statement to the state level statement.
right, okay. And like I said, we do have it mentioned specifically in county government in our county positions, so right, we have general support just within our county league for it too, so.
Right.
So anyway, I was just saying, technically, I don't think we need a motion and a second and a vote on it, but we will make sure it is mentioned in our response to state, so. Okay. Anything else before I ask for a motion to retain current positions? All quiet. Okay, so is there a motion to retain current positions? Deborah?
Yeah.
So move.
I'll second it.
Second, Susan. Okay, thank you. So either with your thumbs up or just hold your hand up for a bit. All those in favor of retaining. Okay. Is there anyone opposed to retaining the current positions? Okay. Jen, was that a opposition or
No, that was just a messing
A-
with Zoom.
a lingering?
I-
Okay.
I'm in
Okay.
favor.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone abstaining? Just for accounts? All right. It's really hard to scroll through on the side here while we're, so bear with us. All right. So I think we have consensus, general agreement. I didn't see any opposition or abstentions. Okay. Thank you so much. I think this is where I hand it off to Rianda. All right, let me stop sharing. We're going to switch control here.
Okay. And now we're going to play with the technology, and we'll share my screen. And it looks like that. And we want you to be. If you'd like to get up for 2 minutes, you can, but no more than 2 minutes. So,
Yeah, if anybody.
all right. I'm going to, as I say, I'm playing with my technology. I'm going to have to hide all of you or I can't see my screen. Okay. Our positions, which they're available on our website, and they were an attachment in an email that I sent out, cover many contingencies. And for most of this discussion, I'm just going to highlight the most salient points. Raise your hand if you have questions or you want to discuss something. Another thing is that I will be asking for consensus on the positions as we go through. I will not wait until the end. And you will understand why as we go on. We have several propositions for new studies and amendments to what we have now. So when we ask for consensus, though, we should say that for a study, we should be thinking about these questions. Does the league already have a position? Is there a government solution to the problem? Is there enough time to do a study and then act to influence the resolution of the problem? If we're looking at an update, think about, is the league position still useful? Is the position sufficiently general? Are there significant developments in the issues area that are not reflected in the position? And what is the proper scope of effort to update the proposition? Okay, so let us start with Boulder County's government structure. And I am, shoot. We are. This is the position on government structure. And as I understand it, Jan Cleland has some recommendations to make. Jan, would you like to take the floor?
Yes, thank you. So the first recommendation is to strike the first sentence that the league supports the present form of Boulder County government, because in fact we don't. Our position supports increasing the number of county commissioners from 3 to 5. So the first sentence is inconsistent with the second sentence, so it seems like it shouldn't be there. And then until there's just a couple places of inserting the word county to make clear that we're talking about county commissioners and not some other kind of commissioners. And so we're just proposing to say that the league supports increasing the number of county commissioners from 3 to 5. We would very much like for them to be represented, to be elected by a proportional voting method. That's not currently an option under state law. So that's why this says until Boulder County has the option to elect county commissioners using a method which promotes proportional representation, because we don't currently have that option, the league supports 3 commissioners elected from districts and 2 elected at large. And basically that's because there's a very small number of options available in state law, and that's the one that we think most closely gets the best representation on the commission.
Okay, do we have discussion, questions from anyone?
It doesn't look, so it's mostly just a language change. I mean, it's not, is that right? Yeah, just to make it, that first sentence is kind of odd, isn't it?
Well, are you saying to delete that sentence because we really prefer to have a larger number?
Right. So it's just that the first sentence is not consistent with the second sentence. So since
Could
the
we
second,
rewrite them so that, here's a rough draft. As long as we only have 3 commissioners, we support the current system.
well, I think what we want to make clear is that our position is that we don't support keeping 3. We want to move to 5. And I don't think we have, as long as we stay with 3, I don't think the only choices that we have now under state law, I think right now they're all living in their districts, but elected at large. And I think the only other options, it would be to have them elected only by the members of their district.
Right.
I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have a position between those 2 things. Neither one of those tends to result in proportional representation. So really our position is what it says there. So just striking that first sentence is really the only significant change, so that we don't on the one hand say we want to keep it the same and then the next sentence say we don't.
Okay, as a devil's advocate, what if there came a move to reduce it to 2 without any other improvements? So,
I don't think that's one of the options under state law, actually.
okay, good, then never mind.
I think it's 3 and 5. I mean, so there's actually a bill under consideration, House Bill 1180, which if Celeste were here, she could tell you the details much better than I can, but it actually has to do with this issue of county commissioners and whether larger counties will have the option to go from 3 to 5, and what election methods are going to be acceptable.
Okay.
Elizabeth, your hand's up.
Yeah, this is again like a little niggly, but we kind of like that in league. So if that first sentence is kind of supposed to be or was designed to be a catch-all that would cover not only the number of commissioners, but the next paragraph, which is about home rule, or kind of any other facet of the form of Boulder County government, I wonder if it could be a standalone that says something like, generally, the league supports the present form of Boulder County government, new paragraph. However, the league supports, or something like that. Again, that could be not a helpful wordsmithing suggestion, but do we need to have any kind of introductory sentence like that at all? Or is the suggestion to delete it just to,
The suggestion is to just delete it because it's not serving any particular purpose. I mean, we say in the rest of the position exactly what it is about local government that we do and don't support.
that we do and don't support? Yeah, that's fair enough.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions, discussion? All right, so the question is, do we support updating the government position by deleting the first sentence and inserting the word county before the word commissioners in the second and third lines? Do I have to have a motion? Peggy. You're on mute.
I move that we make those changes.
Okay, do I have a second? And I see a second. All right, thank you. Show of hands for approval. All right.
And this goes to the annual meeting for the final decision, right? Or
Right.
Yes, it does. All right, in
you through?
opposition, do we
Oh.
have no's? One no. Okay. All right. Do we have abstains? Any abstentions? And I'm not seeing any of those. Okay. Then I believe that, Jan, this is a place that we want to start with a new study for the number of commissioners.
Do we have a study about that? I thought the only study I'm talking about is the one about primary reform.
Well,
Oh, okay. So here's what I have written. That we revisit our preference for electing 5 county commissioners and, you're right. Sorry, I didn't read my notes well enough. Conduct a limited study, which may result in a proposed amendment to the following position. The league supports increasing the number of commissioners from 3 to 5 until, wait a minute, this is what we just did, right? Oh, okay, background for the study. In 2019, the voting methods team held community meetings about a citizen effort to increase the number of county commissioners. That year, the team led the effort to insert the phrase, until Boulder County has the option to elect commissioners using a method which promotes proportional representation in the existing position. The possible study topic: does the League of Boulder County continue to support the 3 districted and 2 at-large option for non-proportional elections? It has been our positions for more than 2 decades, so it might be time to revisit it. If we no longer support that option, then which method would we support? Given the activity of the voting methods team, this limited study might be feasible to conduct quickly. 4 options exist currently in Colorado revised statutes to elect 5 county commissioners. 5 districts, each with their own commissioners. So commissioners reside in 5 different districts, but are all elected at large. Or 5 districts where commissioners reside in 5 different districts and all are elected only by the district electorate. 3 districts with 2 at large, where all 5, with the 3 commissioners live in different districts and are elected only by the district electorate, and the other 2 elected at large. Or 3 commissioners in districts, 2 at large, and they're all elected by the electorate. And right now, those are the only 4 options allowed under state law. But we could have a limited study to decide if we want to change which one of those we support. And House Bill 1180 currently under consideration would reduce the options by keeping only the 3 district, 2 at large, and the 5 districts, where for the ones representing districts, they would be elected only by the district electorate and not at large. And by adding an option to have 4 districts and 1 at large, rather than 3 and 2 or 5 and 0. But if House Bill 1180 passes, then with 5 commissioners, it would no longer be allowable to elect them all at large, unless, right, yeah, right. At least 3 will be elected only by their district electorates.
So the study would sort out a lot of that, I assume.
Yeah.
Um,
And as so Celeste wrote all this, and as she says, you know, the voting methods team has been looking at this a lot, and you know, generally districted elections and these sorts of things. So we have a lot of expertise, and it probably would not have to be a full-blown study starting from scratch.
okay, do we have discussion or questions?
Are you
Liz-
trying to have us come up with a decision this spring?
That's a good question.
Because I don't think we can fit it in.
Yeah,
a outline for how we do things.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that this recommendation includes that specific direction as to the timing of this limited study. I don't think there's any thought that we're going to get it done before the end of the current legislative session.
Right.
Or at least, you know, I'm not aware that we would. And I don't think we have to, because what's happening with the House bill is just changing the options that counties have. But then we would be making a recommendation for the county government to make a decision about how to do this, is my understanding.
Right, but to have the league decide that they want to state a new direction, a new preference, or even keep the old preference within what's allowed, has to get decided now or next spring for the next annual meeting.
I don't know, and I'm really sorry that Celeste is not here to say what she had in mind for this. When is the annual meeting?
May.
Will be in May, but the membership has to have come to consensus on a change, and then
Yeah, I mean, I think my answer to this would be, you know, we would try to do the study as our capacity permits, and if we get it done for this year, great, and if we don't get it done till next year, that's okay too.
Right, but you'd have to call, we would have to call another consensus meeting, program planning meeting like this one, in order to come to consensus on a new, whatever new position your quick study proposed.
Right now, we're just asking for the study. We're not.
Yeah, okay.
You know, so whatever the study comes up with, whenever it comes up with it, we would then, you know, have to deal with that later.
Okay.
Elizabeth,
so you all understand that, so we don't have this sudden flap.
Well, we're certainly not asking to decide right now which of these positions we want to endorse. That would be the subject of the study that we're asking for.
Okay.
Elizabeth, your hand is up. And you're on mute.
Thank you. Yeah, I just, Jen, you just mentioned capacity, and I guess that's my question. Where this, even a limited study kind of would fall on the priority list, given that there have been, and I think are just kind of ongoing conversations about proportional representation, while not managed by the voting methods team per se. The current kind of election timing study that we're talking about in a minute So that's just a question I have, and about the team itself, and also just of league members and any other community members who I think we'd want to, even for a limited study, kind of be a part of the process. So that's, I don't necessarily have a concern about looking again at the issue. And appreciate Susan's questions about process, because other folks in this meeting are way better at that than I am. But that's my only concern is this a priority, given that there are at least a couple of other, if not studies, kind of important issues that the team is working on that I think will and should take the attention of other league members and other community members.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid concern. The voting methods team is very active and has a lot of energy, and certainly whatever could be done by us, I think we're willing to take on. But you're right that, it should involve other league members and other community members. And I can't speak to, what the capacity of the broader membership is. And of course, we're also going to be proposing this, much more extensive study on primary election reform. And I think probably the voting methods team would feel that if we had to pick one, that one would be the higher priority.
Okay. Peggy, your hand's up
Thank
and you're
you.
muted.
Yeah, I was just gonna clarify the timing. If we say that we support doing a limited study tonight, then it still has to be voted on at the annual meeting in May. And so then, there's another year after that. So it's not like anything's gonna happen right away.
Thanks, Peggy. That's helpful.
Okay. Other questions, other discussion? All right, so the question is, do we recommend a new study for the number of commissioners? And that is as simple as I can think to propose
No,
this.
sorry. It's not about the number of commissioners. It's about if we had 5 commissioners, would we want 3 districts and 2 at large, or 5 districts?
Okay, so do we recommend a new study of the distribution of commissioners? Does that cover it?
Sure.
All right. All right. So do we recommend a new study of the distribution of commissioners? Judy, your hand is up before and you're on mute.
I was just voting for the study.
Okay. All right. I call for Elizabeth. Have you a question?
I do have a question. What was the conversation at the other, can I ask what the conversation was or the discussion was at the in-person meeting on Saturday on this topic?
This topic was not introduced on Saturday.
No, it was. This one was.
This one was?
This one was, yeah, and
Okay.
we had general agreement, and I believe it was mentioned that Marcus was interested in being a co-lead for this study. And I remember that Ann Norwood spoke up about, in favor of the study too, specifically, not in favor of this district at large mix. So whether she wants to get involved with the study or not, I don't know, but I know she made comments on it.
Okay, fortunately, someone was there besides me.
There is another topic on our list that got skipped on.
Right. Right, that's a different topic, exactly.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
So
Okay.
can I ask another question real quick? I'm sorry. Y'all know I'm less Robert's Rules of Order than just Bob's Laws of something, Roberta's something. But anyway.
Have at it, Elizabeth.
Can I ask a question? I would feel, and maybe it doesn't matter for our process, but just in terms of capacity, prioritizing, kind of strategic prioritizing, I'd be inclined to vote yes if we can also kind of make some note or pass forward the suggestion that this is really, kind of has its appropriate time, based on capacity of the folks who would be, stepping up to lead it, as well as the just considering other existing priorities for league as a whole.
Yeah, I
our
think that's one of
membership.
fine. And I just want to reemphasize, but this is really limited. And even if we were to do our typical league thing and get, as deep in the weeds as we want to get, we're really very constrained by state law as to what our options are. So there just aren't that many options to explore here. So it's not going to be a super extensive study.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Whoops, I was trying to put my hand up.
You're up. Go, go,
but we
Deborah.
can- I don't think at this point, we don't have to really discuss. I mean, at the annual meeting, we'll see the whole range of things that are suggested, and we can't really sort everything out right now about priorities.
Okay. Other discussion? Questions? All right. So the question is, for a new study, do we recommend a new study of the distribution of commissioners?
County.
Could I- Of county commissioners, of course. Do we recommend a new study of the distribution of county commissioners? And if I could count hands. Six. Okay. Six, yes. Are there no's?
Ignoring my signals. There's no way to turn it off.
Abstentions? Okay, very good. All right, then I believe that we can talk about criminal justice. So on criminal justice, we agree that the philosophy of rehabilitation and support alternative correction programs as alternatives to incarceration. That is the global sound bite of our position. Are there questions or discussion about the criminal justice position? Oh, wait, I didn't. Yes. That's right. All right, we're back here. All right. I believe I have to ask for consensus on our government position as we have altered it, which means that we're removing that first line and we're adding county commissioners. Do we retain this position with these amendments? So I have to ask for okay, we've got hands up. Let me see. Peggy, your name popped up first.
You want me to move, or I was just voting?
Oh,
I can move though. I can move that we retain this position
thank you.
with the changes.
Wait, okay, we have a first and a second. Now can we see yeses? All right. No's? Any no's? Okay, and any abstentions? All right, then let us move on to criminal justice. All right, so we agree with the philosophy of rehabilitation, and we support alternative correction programs as alternatives to incarceration. Do we have discussion on this position? Okay, seeing none. I ask, is there a motion to retain the current position on criminal justice?
I'll move that.
Can you,
And
would you mind reading it one more time, Rianda? I'm sorry.
On criminal justice, we agree with the philosophy of rehabilitation and support alternative correction programs as alternatives to incarceration.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And let's see, we have a motion to retain. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. So show of hands. Right, and noes. And okay, for noes. Abstentions. Okay, all right. Now we come to our position on elected municipal offices. So we have identified requirements for residency and minimum ages for elected officials. We also support a nominating process that furnishes adequate numbers of signatures and reasonable filing delays. We support staggered terms. We support campaign finance regulation that provides disclosure of significant donations. To allow citizens to express their concerns, we support the availability of the referendum, the initiative, the recall, and public hearings. We support restrictions on communication among elected officials outside open public meetings, and we support reasonable compensation for elected officials. And I believe that Jean Cleland has an update for this.
I do. It is a suggestion to append a new bullet point between number 2 and number 3, saying that the league supports using a voting method which promotes proportional representation in municipal governing body elections. Like we were discussing earlier, this is a national position. This is just making it explicit within our local positions that we would like to see this specifically for our, city council, county commissioner elections. And the incentive for including it is to increase membership awareness and understanding of this position, and hopefully foster a more member agreement with this position. Proportional representation is kind of a wonky topic that not everybody really understands or knows much about, even though it's in our national positions. And so we would just like to feature it more prominently to try to get more people aware of it and talking about it and understanding it, what it is, and ensuring that in fact our membership agrees with it.
Okay. Is there discussion or questions? All right, so the question is, do we support adding a bullet point number 3 that reads, the league supports using a voting method which promotes proportional representation in municipal governing body elections? Shirley, your hand is up.
I move that we support this.
Okay, do we have a second?
No second.
Okay. All right, and so may I see a show of hands for? Okay, 8. And against? Abstain? Okay, one abstention. All right. All right. Okay, so now I come back. I ask for a motion to retain the entire elected municipal offices position. Do
So
I?
moved.
Okay. And
Second,
second, all right. So yeses, please. Oh, wait. Wait. All right. Deborah, do you have a question? Okay. Show of hands. Yes. Noes. Abstains. Excellent. Okay, we got that one. All right. For environmental planning, we're going to combine these three positions unless we have questions. Under the heading of environmental planning, our positions address growth management, where we support strong control of quality and quantity of growth, and we support using environmental impact as a criterion for judging the adequacy of planned transportation, housing, and services. We support and encourage cooperation among all government bodies as essential to good planning. And our principles of good planning encourage a regional approach and a long-range perspective on growth and development. New development should provide for public facilities, parking, and circulation plans, as well as parks and open spaces. Do we have questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none. I ask, is there a motion to retain the current positions on environmental planning, growth management, government structure, and principles of good planning?
so moved.
Okay,
I'll second it.
thank you. Could I see hands for? Okay. Yes. Against? Abstentions? Excellent. All right. So our positions on fiscal structure of Boulder County municipalities seeks to promote efficient fiscal administration and adequate, equitable financing of municipal programs, both current and long range. Our positions also state that finances should be audited regularly and that the public be informed of plans and activities. All sources of revenue should contribute to a tax system that is equitable, diversified, flexible, and economical to administer. Do we have questions or discussion? Okay, is there a motion to retain the current positions on the fiscal structure of Boulder County municipalities, long-range programs, and administrative fees?
So move.
Second,
Okay, should I have a show of hands, please, for yes? Five, six, yes. No? Abstain. Okay. All right, now we come to impact fees. Our positions on impact fees state that the league believes that residential and commercial growth should pay their fair share of capital construction costs with a minimal effect on affordable housing. The league believes that impact fees are appropriate for water taps, sewer taps, storm drainage, parks and trees, public transportation, and public buildings, including schools. Do we have discussion or questions on impact fees?
Well, I guess all these fiscal things our board uses a lot, because there's so many ballot measures that are about fees and taxes and fiscal structure, and some of our other positions we haven't used for a long time, but these are useful.
Seems like they would be.
Well,
Any
yeah.
other discussion or questions? All right. And my question is there a motion to retain the current positions on impact fees?
So moved.
Yes. And second? Okay, we've got a second. Could I see a show of hands for yes? Okay. Yes, no. And abstain. Okay. 0, 0, 0. So now we come to voting procedures. The league believes that voting procedures in Boulder County should provide for accuracy, reliability, security, and privacy. Methods should be voter friendly and should encourage voter participation. I believe Jan Clayland has an update here.
Yeah, this one is very small and nitpicky in the sense we would like to change that word methods to procedures. Just because a voting method refers to things like, are we voting with plurality or with instant, ranked choice voting, or with, it refers to the whole voting, well, the voting method. And this is about procedures for how elections are conducted different from that. So it's really just a clarification for accuracy.
Yeah, that's good though. It's yeah, that's good.
Is there discussion or questions?
I guess what I'm thinking is the voting methods team that, originally didn't like that word methods there, but it never occurred to us to try to get it changed.
So now we'll do it. Now we'll do so. All right. Any other questions or discussion? All right. So the question is, shall the League of Boulder County update the position on voting procedures in Boulder County by changing the word methods to procedures? And we see, I call for a vote. We see yes hands. 2, 3, 4, 5. No hands. Abstain. Okay. All right, then. Oh, shoot, come back. All right. Do I have a method? Do I have a motion to retain the position on voting procedures in Boulder County?
So moved.
And the second, fine. Here we go. Let's vote again. Yeses. No. Abstain? Did I get those?
Mm.
Okay. Excellent. Now we can move to voting methods. Now, as the home of national experts on voting methods, our league supports alternatives to plurality voting. These methods must be specified clearly and adapted to the particular situation, single winner, multiple winner, others. Additionally, transparency and auditing are deemed extremely important. And Jan Cleland has an update, I believe.
Yeah, and this is the one that Celeste neglected to present on Saturday. So this is the first presentation of this. What we're asking is to insert this paragraph in bold: for all election contests except for uncontested races, election officials should report the number of undervotes. Candidate vote counts in multi-winner plurality contests should be reported as a percent, and I would actually change that word percent to percentage of ballots for better public understanding of support for candidates. So let me give you a little background on the reason for this. So when we elect city council members in Boulder, everybody gets to vote for 5. And what's reported is the total number of votes that each candidate received, but not the total number of, since every ballot can vote for 5 people, that reporting is not the same number as reporting what percentage of the ballots supported each candidate. And that's a meaningful number that we would like voters to be able to see in order to be able to gauge what percentage of the electorate supported each of the candidates in that election. And also reporting the number of undervotes is part of that. So undervotes are ballots that voted for fewer than 5, or in some cases, maybe even 0. This is not a position that we think needs a study. The voting methods team has already studied and advocated for displaying election results in this way. We've talked to county officials about this. We've written voter articles. We've published a Boulder Beat op-ed. Team members were interviewed on KGNU and asked in Vote 411, and we've contacted the Secretary of State's offices about this. So we're kind of already acting as if we had this position, and so we would like to make it official.
Is there discussion? Are there questions? Elizabeth Crow has her hand up and she's muted. Okay.
Just to refresh my memory, or our memory, this is something that as far as you know, there's no procedural or like technical reason why election results can't be reported this way. They've just chosen not to. I'm just
Correct.
kind of forgetting the back and forth,
Right. There's no additional technology or, any different way of counting the votes that would be required. And in fact, in many cases, we can sit down with the results that as they're reported and compute these numbers ourselves. Like there's not a lot of new information that's needed. It's just how it's phrased in the reporting. And so we're just asking for reporting in a way that would be more transparent to voters to help understand what what percentage of the electorate supported each of the candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Deborah, your hand is up.
Well, I was just supporting this because it's, in a way, it just makes explicit what's in our voting procedures position that we just covered, which, this full reporting and accuracy.
Okay. Other discussion? We have more hands. Peggy, your hand's up.
Yeah, I was just gonna give kind of an example, because I work by examples, and I've been involved with the voting methods team on this. And really it's, so like City of Boulder, I think an example was Bob Yates. The way it was reported, he got like 11%. But yet if you make the denominator be the number of ballots that were cast, then he got a little over 50%. So he actually got a majority. And that's just, the 11% and the 9% and all those that are reported are pretty meaningless currently.
Okay. Other discussion? Other questions? All right, so the question is, shall we update the voting methods position by inserting the following paragraph immediately after the first paragraph? For all election contests except for uncontested races, election officials should report the number of undervotes. Candidate vote counts in multi-winner plurality contests should be reported by a percentage of ballots for better public understanding of support for candidates. Okay. Judy, your hand is up.
I'm just voting yes.
Okay. I call for the yeses. And the noes? Abstain? Okay, that passes. So then I need a motion to accept the voting methods position as we've amended it. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
All right. So I would like to see a show of hands for yes, please, to retain this position. Okay, and no? Okay. Abstains? Excellent. All right. And so now we go to non-citizen rights.
So there's another thing in voting methods, which is, I don't know if that's now or later, but talking about the study we want to propose.
Yeah, yes, and this is probably where we should do that.
Okay.
Let's put up the immediate one. And all right. This is the study on primary election reform. Is that right, Jen?
Correct.
Okay. You have the floor.
All right. So, as you may have heard from news around the country, more and more jurisdictions are switching to blanket jungle primaries for various sorts of elections. These are also referred to as nonpartisan primaries, where instead of a separate Democratic and Republican primary, there's just one big primary with all the candidates. And then depending on the particular jurisdiction, maybe the top 2 or the top 4 or the top 5, then go on to the general election, regardless of party. There are other jurisdictions that want to do away with primary elections altogether. That can particularly happen with jurisdictions that want to adopt a more expressive voting method, because that reduces the need for a separate primary election. Some jurisdictions are using better voting methods only in the primary, not in the general election. Other jurisdictions are only using better voting methods in the general election and not in the primary. Maine requires plurality voting for state offices in the general election, but uses ranked choice voting for primaries. So there's just wildly different things happening. A lot of jurisdictions are changing the way they conduct primaries and general elections in just a huge variety of different ways. And we feel that the time is right for our league to have a study on all the various things that are being done and on what we would like to see happen in Boulder County and in Colorado, and if we might like to make recommendations on this, because there are a lot of other community groups that are looking at these things and making recommendations, and it seems like a place where the league would really be well positioned to study this and formulate an opinion. I have a long list of potential questions that we could ask about this, and I don't know if there's interest in me reading that long list, so maybe I'll pause there.
Okay. Deborah, your hand is up.
I was just gonna ask, what primaries do we have in Boulder County? We have commissioners, primaries, and what else?
That's a good question.
Oh,
Most
yeah, we have sheriff and county clerk and treasurer and all those.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right. We had a sheriff primary, yeah.
I think we would also be, looking to hopefully, if we create a position, we would probably want to ask the state league to consider a concurrence. Because so much of what happens here is, for state elections or local elections for the state legislature and things like that. And it does seem like a lot of this is happening at the state level in states around the country. So, even though we're just the county league, I think the study would encompass possibilities for statewide primaries as well. And I should also say, I know Elizabeth has a very valid question about capacity. Marcus and I have already sort of semi-volunteered ourselves to lead the study. So there are people willing to do that.
Elizabeth?
Thanks, Jen. I wasn't going to make that point, but thank you for saying that. My question really, or comment is, I love the, this concept. It just strikes me that it actually could be more effective as a state league study and not a county league study, just because, well, yeah, I guess I don't even know all the reasons I feel that, but that's my gut. Is that we could do this, but why not, approach this at the state level?
Well, let me say that, as a relatively new league member of a couple of years, I'm still a little fuzzy on all of the relationships between the various, levels. And of course, a lot of us on the Boulder County voting methods team are also active on the state task force on alternative voting methods. So it's possible that that would be a natural partnership with the state level task force. And I don't know how that works with a local study, if we can, propose asking the task force to join with us on that. But I imagine that's certainly people on the task force are people we would be interested in having involved in such a thing.
Deborah, your hand is up.
Yeah, I agree. And our league is probably very prominent on the state task force. It's a big strength of our league. But and I was also going to, what I was really going to say is that the other thing that besides having the committee to study it, it's teams I've been on have had a lot of trouble scheduling the actual consensus meetings, member meetings, educating all the members, and then actually holding a member meeting where you try to get consensus. So I still think this will all come out at the annual meeting. I'm just dropping it in here.
We expect this one to be a big job. It's a big topic, and there's a lot of ground to cover. Marcus has already started doing some background research to see what else is out there. And there is one study that was conducted by a league in Maine that looks relevant. So, research is already underway, and there's a lot of people in and out of the league looking at this question. So, it does seem very timely.
Peggy, your hand is up.
Well, I'm just wondering if it would hurt to just put it in as a suggestion on the state form. And then I guess it would be brought to convention. And either it'll be approved or not on the state level. And if not, we could do it on the local level too. I mean, I guess I'm saying we can propose it on both levels. And maybe the state would actually do it.
Especially if Marcus and I were still volunteering to lead it.
Yeah.
Other discussion or questions? Right. Then the question is, should the League of Women Voters of Boulder County conduct a study of primary election reform? Deborah?
Oh,
I'm sorry. You ready? All right.
voting.
I'd like to see yes hands, please.
Okay.
No. Abstain. Okay. Elizabeth, your hand is up.
It was just up for the no.
Ah, okay.
Sorry about that. And just only because I think it is a better place for state.
All right. And there we go. We still have non-citizen rights to go in government positions. And in our non-citizen rights, our league supports the inclusion of certain non-citizens residing in Boulder County in some of our local democratic processes at the county, municipal, school district, and special district level. As a bit of history, the League of Women Voters of Boulder County has studied non-citizen rights since 2013 and concluded that U.S. immigration policies, as practiced, are failing to provide a clear, consistent, and fair path to citizenship with the attendant privileges and responsibilities of participating in the democratic processes which provide individuals with representation in government. So first, the League supports voting rights limited to the county and municipality where they live for residents whose immigration status is one of these four: legal permanent residents or green card holders, immigrants granted asylum, non-citizens who've applied for citizenship, or DACA recipients, deferred action for childhood arrivals, and TPS visa holders, temporary protective services. So those four categories. Second, we support allowing non-citizen residents who meet one of these four criteria for voting in Boulder County, plus non-citizen residents with expired visas or no visa, to participate in the following additional ways: being appointed to boards and commissions, serving on non-federal juries, and running for elected official. And that was a rather large summary of non-citizen rights. So is there discussion or questions? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to retain the current positions on non-citizen rights?
So move.
So moved and second.
Second.
All right. Could I see yes hands, please? No hands? And abstain? Okay, Jenny. Abstain. Okay. All right. And we now come to our positions on natural resources. The League supports the acquisition and resource management of open space lands. Our positions consider acquisition and funding, as well as protections for wildlife habitats and urban buffers, excuse me. Is there a motion to retain the current position on open space? Unless we need, I forgot, do we need to discuss or ask questions about this? Excuse me. So with
I move
no
we-
discussion.
Yeah, I'll remove, we retain.
All right, I have a motion to retain. Do I have a second?
Second.
Yeah, all right. So may I see yes hands, please? No hands? And abstains? All right. The League supports immediate efforts to promote and manage waste reduction in Boulder County in our solid waste management position. We support citing solid waste related facilities within the county and to set long-term goals and standards for a comprehensive solid waste management policy. The league favors policies for waste diversion through source reduction, reuse, recycling, compost, and household hazardous waste management. Is there discussion or questions? Is there a motion to retain the current positions on solid waste management?
So moved.
And seconds?
Second,
All right. May I see a show of yes hands, please? And no. And abstentions? Great. All right, in transportation, our positions urge the consideration of the needs of pedestrians and those who use alternatives to the automobile in any comprehensive transportation system. The league supports incentives to encourage the use of these alternatives. Are there questions or discussion? All right, is there a motion to retain the current positions on transportation?
also,
Okay, and seconded, yes. All right, may I see yes hands, please? Noes? And abstentions? Okay. In water, we are able to cite the state positions on water. Our league has included support for measures that promote the wise and balanced use of water in Colorado. The league promotes measures to reduce the adverse effects of industrial processes on water quality. Is there questions or discussion? Is there a motion to retain the current positions on water?
so moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
All right. May I see a show of yes hands? Noes? And abstains? Okay. And finally, we come to social policies. Yes, this one caused us trouble on Saturday. Jan Cleland is proposing some new wording, and it was proposed on Saturday. And my confusion was whether we were talking about adding a new position or whether we were talking about updating, one of the ones that we have, right?
My understanding is just amending this one to take advantage of another opportunity to emphasize that we promote, we support voting methods that promote proportional representation, this time for school board elections.
Okay. All right. Well, the discussion, as I said, much of this was my confusion. And so in order, some of us have come up with, and see if you agree with this, Jan, that this is a good place to put it. This is in the very first paragraph of the position. And we would add what I believe is your sentence. The league supports using a voting method which promotes proportional representation in school district governing body elections. So if we have that there, then there are other places that it did not fit.
I
my-
think that's fine. In the notes that Celeste left for me, what she said, appending a new section entitled elections consisting of that statement, but it's fine with me if you feel like it fits better there.
Okay. Well, it seems to me that this is a good place to put that statement rather than trying to make a new position or, tacking it on to one of the other positions that does not talk about electing bodies anyway.
Right. I that's completely fine with me.
Okay.
You could make it a standalone paragraph, because it is a slightly different idea, but
It is slightly different, right? The other sentence in there is not about elections. So, it might be nice if it's just a little bit clearer that it's about school board elections. But I think that's a fine place for it. Maybe just, insert a paragraph break there and have it be a separate paragraph.
a one sentence paragraph. Yeah,
The one ahead of it is one sentence too.
yeah,
So,
right.
That's okay. Peggy, what do you think? Or do you have an opinion?
I kind of like having two paragraphs there, two one-sentence paragraphs, because
Yeah.
they sound like different ideas to me.
I like that too.
okay. Other discussion or questions? Okay. So the question is, do we support adding a statement to the introduction of the social policy section that states the league supports using a voting method which promotes proportional representation in school district governing body elections? Do I have a show of hands for yes? Okay, and no's? And abstentions? Okay, all right. All right, so we have amended that. And in moving on to
Don't we need to retain that one?
well, since that is just the beginning of it, it's
Maybe we're gonna
yes,
retain a bunch of them all at the same time.
that's the prologue. Yeah, well, let's hope so. Okay,
Yeah, all the school ones could all be together.
Yeah,
okay. The league supports an education program characterized by adequate coordination and financing and long-range planning and open channels of communication. For K-12 funding, the league calls for responsible, transparent management of funds with regular opportunities for citizen input and inspection. Taxpayer monies for education should be used to support only public education. The league supports a program that provides students with basic tools for learning, including reading, writing, mathematics, and critical thinking proficiency. The league supports interventions which provide all students adequate opportunities to reach their full potential as contributing members of society. The league supports efficient use of district facilities and long-range planning for construction and land acquisition. And public schools of choice include neighborhood, focus, and charter schools. We support informed parental choice and a diverse student population at each school with equity for all students. Do we have discussion or questions there? All right. So do I have a motion to retain the Boulder Valley and St. Vrain school positions?
So moved.
Shirley?
yes,
Okay. And a second?
Second,
Okay. May I see a show of hands for yes to retain these positions? And noes? All right. All right, in housing, which is the next one. The league supports the availability of a variety of housing for purchase or for rent in price ranges suitable for all income levels. We have several positions that address funding, zoning, and subsidizing concerns. We support the provision of affordable housing through such methods as increases in density, land banking, land trusts, foundations or donations, dedicated general budget funds, new taxes, public-private partnerships, or any other innovative or creative means to provide affordable workforce housing. Do we have questions or discussion? Is there a motion to retain the current positions on housing in Boulder County?
So move.
Second,
All right, may I see a show of yes hands, please? Okay, 8 and no's. Abstain. Okay. Housing. And in healthcare, the league believes that healthcare is a human right. The league supports universal access to and delivery of comprehensive and affordable healthcare. The league supports a system where a single entity dispenses funds to healthcare providers with resources allocated as stated in the national position. Do we have discussion or questions? Is there a motion to retain the current positions on healthcare in Boulder County?
so moved.
Okay, and seconded, or two of you. So may I see yes hands, please? Yes, no's. Okay. All right. And hang on, we're coming close to the end now. We're going to discuss minimum and living wages. Concerning minimum and living wages, the Boulder County League believes that just as Colorado can set a minimum wage above the federal minimum wage, so local jurisdictions should be able to exceed the state minimums. We oppose legislation that prohibits such local action. All sectors should be involved in setting an adequate minimum wage or living wage. The living wage is the minimum required to avoid poverty without government assistance and subsidies. The living wage or gross income should cover the costs of food, clothing, housing, energy, transportation, health care, K-12 education, childcare, taxes, and supplemental expenses for work and school. Do we have discussion or questions? Seeing none, is there a motion to retain the current positions on minimum and living wages?
So move.
And seconds? Yes, there's a hand.
Second,
May I see the yes hands, please? And the no hands? And the abstains? All right.
Peggy, which was your hand? Yes, no, or abstain?
You're on mute, Peggy.
sorry. It was a yes, and I forgot, I thought I hit my lower hand, but I guess I didn't.
Okay. Take that off. All right, then. The worst is over and the best is yet to come. Our issue teams are going to be telling us what they've been doing with all of these positions. And I guess that we can start with the climate action team.
Okay. I just finished writing on my notes, not used during the meeting due to the length of the review time. However, the climate action team has been bouncing back and forth between being a information source and a messenger for actions that league members and others can use to support activity in improving our environment. A couple quick examples are working with the planning offices in the city and county and bringing knowledge to our members and others about the Cool Boulder program. That's very, city limited. But we aim these things at saying how individuals can incorporate the methods that are talked about into their own yards or gardens and that sort of thing. Likewise, we have had a public presentation about the impact of proper composting and improper composting and the ways in which individuals can participate in the countywide programs and hopefully eventually bring a county site. And there's even now a talk just starting about small farmers being able to take the public's compost to a certain degree. So that's something new coming up. And then last spring, we had a tour of the EcoCycle facility, and that broadens a few people's knowledge about managing waste in the county and all of the hard work that goes into the waste processing and recycle materials processing efforts. That feeds the legislation that went through last year to come up with a uniform recycling process for the entire state. So it's not some counties have it and some counties don't, and all counties recycle different things. Instead, we'll get a much more understandable system and one that's available to everybody. And that's pretty much all I have to report on. We are trying to have more regular meetings and then come up with some public meetings for this year and the future now that we're out from under COVID, so to speak.
Okay, good work. Any questions? All right, I believe Julia is here from the gun safety team.
I am. I'm here to try to step in. We actually have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow. We've been trying to stick to the fourth Thursday of the month. The last couple of meetings have been just small and discussions of where do we go next? What should we be really looking at? I've only been, as I mentioned, with the league a couple of years. So the first year there was an effort to have a Ceasefire Colorado presentation and another presentation that's slipping my mind right now. This year, hopefully we'll get a little more in the swing of things while the legislative session is still in progress, trying to keep track of what's going on there in case we can help advocate. At the Boulder County level, what I see as being probably the most interesting item is perhaps supporting the efforts for Boulder County to open a public firing range. That's on hold right now, I think, for funding reasons, but I'm guessing that will become something we can advocate for and get behind. That's about all I have right now. I think we're just trying to build up some momentum and kind of get our feet under us.
Very good. Questions? All right. our voting method teams. Jan, you're back up.
I feel like I've been doing all the talking this meeting, so I'm going to just try to be brief. But we are very active. We are trying to do a lot of education about the advantages specifically of multi-winner elections with proportional voting methods. And also better voting methods for single winner elections, just better voting methods of all sorts. We have members on the team who are engaged in research about alternative voting methods. We've put together a lot of educational materials, some great videos, one about single winner methods and one about multi-winner methods that are on our website. We're also trying to work with cities, the county and legislature to write legislation or ballot language to allow the use of better voting methods. There are some pretty unfortunate constraints within state law about what cities and other jurisdictions can do. But we were supportive of Broomfield's adopting of ranked choice voting recently. Fort Collins also recently adopted ranked choice voting. So there's a lot of alternative voting method action happening around the state, and we're trying to be involved in it and provide education and support. We're trying to work with the city council about perhaps getting a better voting method for city council members, and they kind of keep saying, yes, we're interested, but we don't have the resources to think about that right now. But we're continuing to try to just advocate for and educate about better voting methods wherever we can. And we meet pretty regularly, usually at Pat and Frank Venturo's house in Erie, but we also always have a Zoom option, and we welcome anyone coming.
Any questions? Okay, very good work. From the school teams, I'm not sure that Linda Haltman is here tonight.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
I'm here. Yeah.
You're up.
Okay. Okay. We have been, like some of the other teams, meeting we were kind of slowed down by COVID, and we're trying to get back up to speed. Next meeting will probably be sometime in March. I'll get into that when I talk a little more here. Possible strategic goals, civics education. Okay, this is a big issue. There seems to be a general thinking that civics isn't being taught anymore in schools, and that is not true. There is a Colorado law requiring a civics course for anybody who gets a high school diploma in Colorado. So you can be sure that anybody who graduated from high school here, gosh, I don't know when this law went into effect, but pretty much everybody in the last 10 years or so, at least 20. I have one of my kids graduated, had her 20th reunion, and I know she took civics in school. So anyway, and we did do a big community conversation thing about this a few years ago with both districts in Boulder County, St. Vrain and Boulder Valley, and they both have very robust programs. But if there's enough interest in wanting to have another one, we could probably put it together, because this was very well attended and people seem to enjoy it a lot. Media literacy, that would be, I don't know if there's anybody really pushing for that, for us studying that. We could certainly take that upon ourselves. The Harvard case study is something we've been trying to get off the ground, but it just hasn't worked. For those of you who wonder what in the world Harvard case study is, it's a community conversation type of thing where which requires some preparation on the part of the audience to read some materials, and then the presenter presents a situation like, say, women's suffrage, and gets people to talk about how they should resolve the issue, and then at the end she tells them what really happened and see how close the group came, which could be really interesting, but the person we sent to be trained for this has had some health problems, and of course we had the pandemic, and then we were all set to kind of do one by Zoom, and I forget what happened with that, but eventually we may get that done. One of the requirements for sending this person for this training was that she would then do one of these case studies for our group and the community. The other thing we have going on, which isn't on here, but which is our most active project right now, is when we're just in the beginning stages, getting a contest going for high school students in the county to develop some get out the vote materials, either stickers like those little stickers you get when you vote that say I voted, but this would be more encouraging people to vote, posters, things like that. And that is very much in the beginning stages, but you should be expecting to hear more about that the rest of this spring. That's all I know. Anybody's welcome to our meetings. I think we have a meeting with someone from the county commissioner, the county clerk's office about this contest, and probably we'll have a meeting after that to see where we're going to go with this.
Okay. Any questions? All right, thank you. And we have an elections timing study team. I'm not sure that anyone here tonight is ready to talk about that. Jan, is that part of your portfolio?
I'm afraid it is not.
Okay, well, in that case, we have just a couple more questions. Do we recommend a new study? I'd like to see a show of hands. Other than the two that we've talked about,
Okay.
is there anyone else who has a new study to propose? So do we have a new study? All right, seeing none. Do we recommend reviewing an existing position other than the ones that we've talked about? Everybody got to present their ideas? All right. Are there any positions we would like to see removed? Let's make sure we cover that one. All right. All right, so I think we're done. Holly, are we done with my part?
Yes, I think we're done. I don't even think we got to these slides on Saturday.
All right.
But and I think most of our members here are somehow already involved here at tonight's meeting, issue teams, action alerts. This is a pretty engaged group. So I don't think there's anything more here.
Okay.
What's next? And unless somebody has another topic, I know, yeah, like Elizabeth mentioned in the chat, because it just came up at Thursday's board meeting about another effort in high school and college curriculum that encourages voting and voter engagement in youth. But that is something also in the early stages. I believe it originated in a New Jersey league, if I remember correctly, and I think Elizabeth commented. So unless there's something else someone wants to bring up, but I know I'm hungry for dinner.
Me too.
Thank you, Rihanna.
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Really great.
Well, I thank you all for your patience.
Yeah.
Thanks very
Great
much.
job. Thanks, everyone.
Everybody. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Right.
Good evening.